Growing up in the 90s and early 2000s, PlayStation was everywhere. A console that I was very familiar with and played at friends' houses, but yet didn't own myself until the third generation of it. Being a Nintendo 64 main, I definitely favored the 3D platformer adventure style of games, which the N64 was known for. But that doesn't mean the PlayStation didn't have its share of good adventure platformer titles. Probably two of the biggest on the console, and the two I often see requested on my channel to cover are the Bandicoot and the Dragon. Well guys, now is the time. Let's boot up that PS1. This is the mysteries of Spyro the Dragon. Spyro's Dragon Clan. In the game, we're presented with several worlds that are named after the dragon clans that inhabit them. The Artisans, which are the dragons of culture. They focus on art and songs. They are described as the most gentle of all the dragons. The environment they live in is the hills and green valleys. The Peacekeepers are described as the strongest of all the dragons and are the ones focused on battle. The environment they live in is the harsh desert sand dunes, tar pits, and ice caves. The Magic Crafters are very shy dragon types that prefer to be alone. They practice their magic and create magical items. The environment they live in are remote mountaintops, ice cliffs, and caves. The Beastmakers create different creatures and new species for the world. They live in swamps, mud huts, and hollowed out trees in the forest. Their environment is filled with natural clay and they use it to create creatures. And then finally, the Dreamweavers. These dragons are described as peacekeepers of the night. They essentially protect other dragons from nightmares as they sleep. So now that we have a good understanding of the types of dragons we're looking at, what kind of qualities does Spyro exhibit that we can associate him with a type? First, we look at the physical characteristics. The color of Spyro does appear somewhat unique among the other dragons, though we do have a few that we rescued that are on a similar spectrum of bluish and purple. It's far more common to find a green-brownish color dragon though. The color of dragon also doesn't seem to matter in the worlds they reside in. Each world has a variety of colors. One thing that does seem to change based on the world we're in is the pattern on the dragons along with their body types. Dragons and Peacekeepers, for example, tend to be stockier and have leopard spots on their skin, while dragons and Magic Crafters tend to have smooth and less scaly looking skin. Beastmakers tend to have spots on the flaps of their face, and Dreamweavers seem to have front horns like a rhino. That leaves us with the first dragon species, the Artisans, which Spyro does start his adventure in. This does seem to imply Spyro is in fact an artisan dragon. The wiki even seems to agree, but a small detail in the manual says Spyro was playing hooky. I guess not doing what he was supposed to be doing, maybe visiting the other dragon worlds? It's also interesting in the Japanese backstory for Spyro, him and his Dragonflies' eggs were recovered from egg thieves and the other dragons didn't know what the origin of the eggs actually was. So Spyro could be another type. It's interesting that there are technically 6 worlds, though only 5 official dragon clans. They avoid the last world because they don't like it, and Gnasty took that place as his own. Could there be something special about the world in particular and have its own breed of dragons? Since Spyro has some very unique features, he doesn't seem to quite fit in with the others, though it is important to note he's not full grown. He does show a certain desire to take out Gnasty and isn't afraid in the slightest after he just essentially captured all of Spyro's species in one move. That tells me ingrained in his blood is the desire to defeat Nork, maybe an attachment to his homeworld without realizing it? Dragonflies. In Spyro, Dragonflies are described as the guardians of young dragons. Sparx in the manual describes himself as Spyro's best friend, and as mentioned earlier in the backstory, Sparx was actually found with Spyro's egg, and he's been with him since Spyro hatched. It's hard not to notice, though, a lack of dragonflies in the game. We only ever see Sparx, but we also don't really see any young dragons. Perhaps the Dragonflies leave their dragon when they reach a certain age and find a new young dragon to watch over? Or maybe, in a slightly darker tone, the dragons live longer than dragonflies, either due to age or danger, and they lose their companions. Or maybe having a dragonfly is rare, and Spyro just happens to have been lucky enough or special. I know later games in the series really address dragonflies, but in this first game it certainly is a mystery where all the other dragonflies are at. Maybe some of those eggs we recover are actually dragonflies? The Special Fairy. Throughout the game, there are several types of fairies that assist Spyro on his journey. There are the save fairies that save your progress on rescue dragon pedestals, fairies that catch you when you fall and return you to a safe spot on land, fairies that give you directions, and fairies that power up your flames by giving you a little smoochy poo. But one fairy in Haunted Towers is special. She doesn't only give you a super flame, but it's infinite. You can find this fairy by doing the supercharge ramp, running outside, and following this path, jumping off the platform to find a secret courtyard. Navigating upwards past enemies, you'll find her in a secret room with some treasure. The other fairies that give you a super flame only give it to you for a limited time, but this is infinite. She's also dressed in yellow, which is unique amongst the other super flame fairies. Why is this fairy more powerful? The infinite flame only lasts for this level, so her magic is only potent in haunted towers. Could this be where the fairies live since there are so many? At least the super flame ones. Perhaps this is their leader and she's fed up with Gnasty Nork's metal goons in her land, so she funnels all her power into us. Flight levels. Throughout the game, you can enter into these flight levels, bonus levels where you need to accomplish tasks by destroying a certain amount of treasure chests or enemies in a certain amount of time. What's interesting about these levels is Spyro goes into all range mode and can fly. But why? Certainly this is a skill that would be desirable in any level. Why wouldn't Spyro use it in a normal level? Well, maybe he can't. Dragons have wings, but we never actually see any of them really using them aside from Spyro when he glides. At the very least, Spyro can't seem to fly otherwise. I would question some of the dragons with their physical characteristics. How do they get lift with a body like that? Anyways, I noticed that in the levels, they are loaded with multicolored crystals. These are the only levels to do this, and coincidentally the only levels where Spyro can fly, aside from the level where you can grab Gnasty's loot, which seems to have its own special qualities. The bonus levels also only have Gnasty's crew and a couple of fairies inhabiting it. Is this where Spyro potentially comes from and why he gains strength here? Is it a piece of Gnasty's world? These bonus levels are strange, and why would they be hidden from other dragons? There must be something special about it. Gnasty's world. Okay, now we just briefly talked about this world being one of the few Spyro can fly, but have you taken the time to analyze the environment? If you sit still and just look up, you'll see the skybox. It's insane. Even up in the Dreamweaver's world, we didn't see this much, just clouds. But here we can see an entire solar system of planets. Jupiter, Saturn, Neptune, Earth maybe? Not sure if those are actually our planets in the solar system, but the one that looks like Saturn is certainly the most striking in my opinion. But how is it possible we can see all these? We seem equally close to everything. Does this game not take place on Earth? Or maybe this means something else. We do travel world to world in this game, albeit by hot air balloon, but also these magic portals. Perhaps the dragon worlds we travel to are on one planet, which is why we can travel to them via balloon, but maybe the levels within the worlds are sometimes located on other worlds that were explored by the dragons, and we have to portal over to them. The source of dragon nightmares. In the Dreamweaver's world, as I previously stated, the dragons there defend the dreams of other dragons from nightmares. That means every portal we enter through must be a dragon's dream, or rather, nightmare. And we even see directly why they are having a nightmare. The Dreamweavers have a full-time job because of the Fools. The Fools are the strongest enemies in the game because they cannot be defeated. You can temporarily stun them and take them out, but they'll pop back up and keep causing mischief. They do things like turn dogs into giant teeth-filled red beasts and little turtles into large shielded monstrosities, evidently for no reason. These are the only enemies in the game I believe aren't created by Gnasty Nork since they don't turn into gems once defeated, and they are terrifying. TV interviewer. At the beginning and the end of the game, the dragons and Spyro are being interviewed for TV, but who's doing the interview? We only ever see the arm and boom mic of the interviewer. The arm does appear like another dragon. Was the interviewer crystallized as well? I actually think we can assume he was crystallized, indicating it must be another dragon. The reason why I believe they were crystallized is the camera's moving until the crystallized noises stops in the cutscene, and it falls on Spyro, who says he's got some things to do and runs out of frame. Upon doing further research, I learned that there was a website dedicated to Spyro the Dragon called DNN, or Dragon News Network. This is who conducted the interviews, apparently having an exclusive with Sparks as well. You can visit and read some of the articles on DNN yourself by checking out the link in the description below. It's very interesting.
Spyro the Dragon, you defeated Gnasty Gnorc, collected the dragon eggs, saved all the dragons, and recovered every bit of treasure in the Dragon Kingdom. How do you feel?
I feel fired up, Bob.
Spyro Grown Up. Have you wondered what Spyro would look like when he gets older? He often says things like, "When I get bigger and when I grow." But what would he look like? We never really get to see him change past this form. Or do we? In the instruction manual for the game, if you go all the way to the end where it says credits continued and limited warranty, we see a picture of what Spyro would look like as an adult. Peep the special medal he has. Looking good, Spyro. Looking good. Well, that's all I have for you. I hope you enjoyed the first PS1 game I covered. If you can take a minute to flame that like button on this video, it really helps my content on YouTube. And of course, ram that subscribe button if you haven't. And if you want to support me further, take a look at becoming a member on my channel like these incredible people. Until next time, have a good one.
Jiggylookback!